Welcome to Red Light, Green Light, the podcast where you'll hear from industry leaders in science, technology, and innovation about the power of strategic storytelling. With decades of experience, our guests will share their own insights and real-world stories to help you avoid red light barriers and ignite green light solutions. From the Zoom room to the boardroom. In each episode, we'll corkscrew downward into the guests' personal experiences of challenge and success, highlighting strategies that turn complex ideas into clear, compelling storylines for stakeholders. Here is where expert minds share stories that shape the future. What's more, you'll walk away with tips to try immediately to drive the vision of innovation with your team. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Red Light, Green Light, the podcast where we bring to you incredible talent across many different industries, people who've brought decades of experience, and they're ready to share some wisdom and stories with you on your journey through leadership, executive communications, and just life. Today, I'm really excited to bring to you Toby Usnik. Toby, it's so good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Cindy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I would love to kick off by having you describe a little bit about your career arc up till this point in time. You and I initially met through one of our previous guests who came on the show, Samir Kanuga. And I know a little bit about you, but go ahead and give us the stepping stones.
Sure. And shout out to Samir because he did connect us. And that's one of the main themes we'll explore today.
Yeah.
Samir, as you know, is both a pilot and an instructor, as well as a CFO. And I'm a pilot. And we met through flying. And that actually became the metaphor we used for a book we wrote this past year on networking called Connect the Dots. But
Awesome.
Anyway, I am a Midwesterner, a proud Midwesterner by birth, although I did not grow up there. I was, for better or for worse, my mom was widowed with 5 young boys when I was 2.
Wow.
And a few years after that, she remarried my stepfather, Neil Vogler, who not only did he raise all 5 of Sally, my mom's kids, like a father would, but he was what we call ourselves corporate gypsies. He spent most of his career with BASF, the German chemical conglomerate.
Okay.
And so every 2 years, pretty much throughout my life, we moved.
Corporate gypsies. That's a new one for me. I like that.
And when people say, oh, military brat, I just say, no, tax problems.
Nice.
So,
Okay.
and in the 70s in particular, that was fairly common. And so we actually knew nothing different. So we loved it. With 5 boys, you also have playmates and people to fight with and whatnot.
Basketball team. Yeah.
Basketball team, everyone said that. And also loving parents. So we usually hit the ground running. And as we would move, we'd have at least 1 month in a hotel somewhere. And as a kid, living in hotels, playing with elevators, swimming pools, and eating out was magical. But the reason that was important was it allowed my brothers and I think, to really become, like our parents, very adaptable and very inclusive. Even with 7 in a family, we always had either some guys from the military base come for Thanksgiving or Christmas. We had a study abroad student from the Philippines when I was in 1st grade.
Cool.
So there was always more room at the table. And that's, again, something else I learned from my parents. And I think actually, going to your audience, I think it's a good signifier of leaders and good leadership. It's not about, I think, keeping people out. It's really about inviting people in. Not all at the same level all the time, but I think there's always room for more if we're open-minded in business and in life. So I got that from my parents.
Love it. Love it.
And then the other thing that really came on strong early on, I mentioned the Jovi, our Philippine student, but my parents also exposed us early on to international living without the ability to travel abroad. We had so many friends, in particular, 2 couples, the Walshes and the Eroskins, who played bridge maniacally like my parents when we lived in Chicago. And
Parents play bridge too. It's a thing.
I tried. But the point is that my parents always exposed us to international foods and experiences, and that set a fire in me. So only one spouse of those 6 adults remains alive, Mrs. Eroskin in London, and I still speak with her regularly. And they had been with British Airways, and the other couple was with the Foreign Service. And so I was just always excited, want to get out, get out, get out. And that has fueled my whole life and career. I've always been about the other, about the adventure of living, working, studying abroad. And it really has defined my whole career, where I've studied junior abroad in Vienna and Paris, graduate study in Brussels on my Fulbright, and then working in global positions with global brands like American Express and the New York Times and Christie's.
Wow, amazing. I didn't know about the Fulbright. Tell me just a bit about that because, that's a very prestigious honor. So tell us where you were and what you studied.
I will do that. And you know what? Because I prepped a little bit for the interview, I'll tell you
Oh, good.
one of the morals there is that
Yeah.
I didn't get the Fulbright the first time I applied, but I got it the second.
Oh, I love
So,
that. Oh, I
it's one of
love
those,
that.
if you really want something, I sort of liken it to Harry Houdini when he did that water trick under ice where he got out, but he had to find the oxygen between the water and the ice. If I don't get something, I just keep moving up and trying to
Yes,
find the oxygen, because if you really want something, you'll do that, right?
that's
And you'll
beautiful.
find different ways. And I've done that. So I
Yeah.
got the Fulbright to study. I was in graduate school at Columbia. I was
Mhm.
working on a PhD in international and comparative education, because earlier in my career, I had found that study abroad had been so formative and wonderful for me. I could make a career path there. Studied a master's at Penn and ran study abroad programs there, and then a graduate degree further in New York. Got the Fulbright to study something called Erasmus, which was the great scholar, and they
Yeah.
used his name as an acronym for the European Action Scheme for the Mobility of University Students, which is an
Wow.
EU program that's still around and highly successful. And what's really cool about it is the EU was trying to become more than just a trade union and to make it more cultural. So the goal of Erasmus to this day is to have, say, an Italian student study in France or Poland
Yep.
and foster more of a European identity instead of its own national identity. Highly successful. We don't hear as much about programs like that right now, particularly after
Yeah.
Brexit. There's just a lot of, I think, cross currents about whether it's good or bad. But my experience has been always, as you know, getting people outside their own place, outside their own comfort zone, is a way to grow them and your brand, your organization. Um, it's also another way, I believe, to combat the increased polarization that we're seeing. And from a business perspective, what I've seen over and over again is those margins, those edges, that's where the opportunity is.
Yes, it so frequently is the case when it comes to, the things that are our opportunities are the things that appear to divide us or create that kind of potential divisiveness when really we want to lean in
Mm-hmm.
and be comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And that's what happens when we travel. I just love this theme of travel and international play, if you will. And you're bringing so many things up for me
Mm-hmm.
with things we did in our family. We had military come and sit at our Thanksgiving tables through our church just to give them a place to have a home and a home
Mm-hmm.
cooked meal for Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
We hosted an exchange student last year. A shout out to Martina Lusana and her whole family from Milan, Italy. Yes, and we take our kids as often as possible to other countries to experience the beauty, the freedom, the art, the culture, the language,
Yeah.
and it's just an amazing part of life that we've really really embraced. We're heading to Japan this summer. Never been. I'm
Wow.
so excited. Just
Yeah.
and it's a wonderful way to create stories, make memories, and learn that we're all just human. And I think
Yeah.
that connection is where you've taken a lot of your work, right, Toby, in terms of we're connecting as a human being to a human being, and that is something no technology can replace.
Correct.
It is something that is deeply seated in all of us as a need,
Mm-hmm.
a desire, a deep desire to be seen and to be known. So,
Mm-hmm.
can you speak a little more about those pieces that,
Sure.
as you would like to? And is that sort of
Sure.
kind of your superpower, your main lane of brilliance?
Yeah. In retrospect, I think it is. I guess the prelude I would say to that, and this goes back to what you're saying about families hosting soldiers and
Yeah.
being of service to other. I do believe. I mean, I'm Catholic. I'm not practicing. I think of myself as Christian, but I do believe in a similar religious sense that we're on this planet to serve, and all great leaders are of service to others and of higher purpose. And I don't think that's fancy or highfalutin. I think that the only real leaders I've ever seen, studied, or known about in life are those whose legacy is about more than just making some money or taking care of their own. And so that is what in my coaching, in my writing, in my life, and the way I was taught is the way forward. Love it. And so how one does that is another big theme for me, which is purpose. I think purpose can sound fancy and people can feel intimidated. I don't know what my purpose is. Well, I do believe every one of us has a specific, unique to us ability to do something significant, if not several things in our lifetime. And the only way you can really define it or declare it is by test driving and talking about it. That's where I'm very bullish on AI. I teach courses in large language models. You can iterate now more readily with all of the universe of insight at 2 o'clock in the morning if you want.
Crazy? Yes, I was doing that last night at 2 o'clock in the morning, finishing my final edit for my book.
There you go.
Using AI a little bit, not a lot, guys.
And that leads to the third point about connecting. So I've just done this my whole life, and by being out and about and doing it with integrity and responsibility. I don't sell my Rolodex. I do a lot of fundraising. I've done a lot of fundraising, but I have this concept that my friend Sue Rockefeller introduced me to of reputational currency. I won't trade on names and things, but, and so the point is, as I've grown my network and worked in different sectors and worked globally, I've found great joy in helping people connect with brands and individuals that are either like-minded or working toward the same goals, or in my own way of thinking might connect in ways that even AI won't do. And usually I get almost like a nuclear response because I try to find at least 3 things in common when I introduce people. That aren't necessarily the task at hand, but also like, where'd your kid go to school? Or, you have a child with autism, or you're also a hockey player. And that's where the connectivity not only is more exciting, but I have found that the recall is greater later too. Right?
Absolutely.
So you'll find that someone remembers later, oh, you should talk to this guy, Toby, or whatever. Now, I would say that while I'm fine financially, I'd always like to have more projects and more consulting and more income. I've never marketed that or made money off of that. And I don't have regrets about it, because if people say, nice guy, but he finished last, I don't really think I finished last, and no one has said that, but I don't want to, I'm not in this to make money. I get great joy. And that goes back to my purpose, because my purpose is of making a difference through daily discovery and adventure. So if I connect this person here with that person there, and it's really impactful, I get joy from that. I also learn and grow because, as you know, with your podcast, and I have in my own podcast, The Caring Economy, great guests, and they all are in this together with us. So the power of connection, and this is the book, I'm going to be crass. This is the book we wrote together called Connecting Dots, Building Your Network and Legacy. I think for Samir, it was more, at this point in his career, he's younger, it's about building the network. But I always ask, to what end? So that's the legacy piece.
Why?
So if you, and I can ask a 6-year-old kid this, if you start to ask someone what they think their purpose is, or, what they're meant to do on this planet, just by cogitating on that, they're going to be further along to defining it. And then as they go out into the world, they're going to be able to find like-minded people. And then you leverage AI and LinkedIn and other things, you can only become more efficient, more effective, and more impactful. For really great, noble reasons. So gorgeous. This book came to me coincidentally because people have said to me forever, I'll just ask Toby. Toby knows everyone. I don't know everyone, but I know how to get to people. And with a career in corporate communications, if I don't know the CEO of a company, I usually have one call to their chief communications officer. So you find your ways there, again, responsibly. But it was actually Samir, when we were flying, Samir came into our life when we bought our Cessna almost 20 years ago. And Harlan, my husband, and I were pilots, but we had our VFR, our visual flight rules, but not our IFR, instrument flight rules. So the broker, who's a mutual friend of all of ours, had Samir meet us in Van Nuys Airport, and we flew across country back to New York with our plane, and Samir is the safety pilot. Then 17 years, I think, later, we were selling the plane through the same broker, so we did the reverse and went from New York to Phoenix where the
Yep.
plane was sold.
Yep.
And on that flight, that's where the photo is here, actually, in the
Oh,
cover.
you're kidding.
And
Oh,
I
that's
happened
so
to get a
great.
map there. And the map is superimposed here, the charts, because connecting the dots is kind of like you got to
Oh,
connect
yeah.
your stopovers. But literally, I think we were over Wichita, which ironically is the home base of Cessna.
Oh,
And Samir
funny.
said, I'm flying. It's on autopilot. He says, Toby, I've watched you all these years. I mean, he was a graduate student, unmarried,
Yep.
rising star,
Yeah.
instructor when we met him. Fast forward all these years later, he's married, 3 kids, great
Yes.
kids, and
Ah,
CFO of a company. And he said, Toby, I've watched you in action. I just want to know how do you network? And I said, Samir, put the iPad down. I said, why
yeah.
don't we just write a book together about it?
Oh,
And we use
nice.
generative AI as part of the story, which we did. We'll use
Mm-hmm.
aviation as part of the story. And within 7, 8 months, we had the book done and got it
So
published.
great.
So it was Samir who kind of crystallized it for me by asking over Wichita at, I don't know, 12,000 feet, like, how do you do this? And I
Right.
hear this all the time. So I think it's a long-winded way to say, I think that's kind of what's your turn of phrase? Like
The zone of brilliance.
your zone of brilliance.
Mm-hmm.
It's just who I am. I get great joy out of it. And the best part of it is every moment of my life is on mission, on purpose. So
Love
including
it.
this interview. So it gives
Love
me
it.
incredible joy.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm not wasting a minute of time because I do know, and maybe it's in part because my dad died when I was very young, who knows? But
Right.
I've lost a lot of friends as a gay man to AIDS. I've seen a lot of death and dying, even at, later in life,
Yeah.
COVID. I know that time is the most precious thing we have.
Mm.
So I won't squander it. And if
Yes.
people
Thank
ask me for
you.
help, I will always help people. But I've learned through the years how to give a little bit more attention or help and
Mm-hmm.
how to do less.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's looping, I can only do so much, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so you give what you can. And if
Right.
it's a young kid who comes to me over, LinkedIn, I'll say, well, have you read my book? Or, you know, check this out first. I'm not going to give the same amount of time and attention because it's only so much time, but it's all on
Right.
mission because I am making that difference and having some discovery and fun along the way.
Absolutely. That is such a great way to look at life and just being here with, every minute, every day. You've got a purpose, you've got a mission, you're on purpose, on mission, on purpose, right? It's
Thank
funny. I was last night I was finishing my final edit for the book that we've got coming out. And I was looking at the piece I wrote about legacy with regard to communicating innovative ideas and how the book is it's centered toward folks who are, like a long ways into their career, but not done yet. And so
you.
there's this sweet spot that I tend to meet people in where they are really expert in this one area of their lives, but they're not done yet. And so they want to find a way to help the idea or innovation or skill live on as they go to the downshifting of their career. And so you can leave legacy in a lot of different ways, and it can be through connecting people to others. It can be through innovations and ideas and inventions. It can be through, lessons we've learned, and really the feeling we give others when we're with them, and
Mhm.
hopefully impart upon them these values you're mentioning about integrity and the feeling of joy of just spending time with another human being,
Mm.
heart, mind, body, and soul. So
Well, well,
that's just fantastic.
to that point, I don't want to throw any ideas at
No.
you now that you're final editing, but I think, particularly now in these tumultuous times, I think now is the time for people who are particularly accomplished to take advantage of the AI, take advantage of their network. Doesn't require
Mhm.
any money, just some time, perhaps, and you decide on some. But the times demand that we do more, that we lean in more and do more.
Yeah.
So
Do the
you
hard
can
things.
iterate, but my heroes were people like Vance Jordan, and uh, God bless her. Why am I blanking? Gloria Steinem, who's
Oh
now
yeah.
90. That woman's never going to stop. I'm never going
Right.
to stop, right?
Right.
So leaders never stop leading, right?
Yeah.
And
It's
I
true.
think the idea of going to a gated golf community, I don't think real leaders really aspire to do just that. They'll
Right.
still want to at least be involved in their,
Yeah.
their community in some way or their church. But I think now's the time in a really fun, diplomatic, adventurous way to say
Mm-hmm.
to that person, maybe in the last third of his or her life,
Mm-hmm.
um, lean in. Now's the
Yeah,
time.
lean
This is
in.
very,
I mean, like this, now's the time, right? We get one turn on this road of life and we don't get to do it over. So lean in, get uncomfortable, learn, fall, stand up, brush
and
yourself
and
off.
they know it. I mean, they know they
Yeah,
have something to say. They just haven't been challenged to say it. You can write
right.
a book, you can do something, you can do a podcast.
Yes.
But as an example, I have a client, he's 60, he's probably 70 now. He thinks of his this is the third chapter of his life.
Mm-hmm.
Highly successful private equity investor guy, made millions of dollars and millions of dollars for
Mm-hmm.
others,
Mm-hmm.
is an owner in the Yankees and the Orioles. And
Awesome.
he's also very under the radar, understated, and he's always done deals with acquisitions and VC and the
Mm-hmm.
private equity that leaves money on the table for the companies that are big, for staff and
Mm.
employees that are being affected. So he's, I would say, done it with heart. And
Yes.
why is he working with me? He wants to work on some communication. So we've worked on some byline articles, op-eds, and a children's book on
Oh, cool.
investing, an ABC
Yeah,
book on investing
that's
that is
great.
both, for kids, in a sense, dumbed down, but also fun for his peers who, we got the publisher, we're editing it now. I've used AI to do the generative
Yeah.
images, all part of the story. But the fact is, this client of mine knows he wants to say more, has the ability to,
Mm-hmm.
and he doesn't. He'll continue to make money and wants to make
Mm-hmm.
money, but he doesn't need to. So that's he doesn't need another board role or anything else. And
Right.
if someone at that level is doing it, I think everyone has that potential.
Yeah, we
And
can give a little bit in some fashion to the bike lane of our road right now, whatever that might be. And for him to create a children's book that's around investing and smart financial strategies, knowing that that's going to be around when he no longer is, he's, letting some of these 6, 7, 8-year-olds learn some basic skills
yeah,
about giving and saving. It's
and here's
a
the kicker: all the proceeds are going to a major. I won't say anything more than this. A major national organization that is focused on delivering financial literacy,
oh,
because
fantastic.
financial literacy is probably at an
Oh,
all-time low in this country.
yes,
And
yes. I
so,
certainly wish I had had more of it when I was younger. I'm
right,
no,
we all do.
I'm open about that. I'm so thankful that my husband is really good at and loves to take hold of some of those longer term investment strategies that we have our giftings, each of us, and that's not mine. And thankfully it's his. And so off we've gone, right? But
Yeah, but
learning stuff.
going to your legacy thing, that could be an interesting question for your audience. Like, all right, we know what you excel in. Where are you weak in, where you might want to excel, and maybe do so
Right,
by volunteering or helping.
right.
To that point, um, and it's not an aggression, but Robert Putnam, you may know the name. He was on
Mm-hmm.
NewsHour on PBS last week. He wrote
Mm-hmm.
Bowling Alone years ago about how Americans are becoming less and less civically engaged. And his latest
Yes.
book is a variation on that, but he's involved with this organization called Join or Die. And Join or Die was a flag and a colonial era, a revolutionary
Oh yeah,
motto.
definitely recognize
And
that.
now Join or Die in the contemporary version is a film and effort to get young people in particular, but all people, to join something. Just join
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Yeah, just
And you
join.
create something if you don't see
Yeah.
anything you want. But this idea that we are better together when we're
Yes.
working shared purposes, it
Yep.
doesn't take away from the American independence
Hmm.
or self power, but it invites people to be part of a
Yeah.
solution, something bigger than themselves.
Yes.
Instead of,
Absolutely.
instead of pushing people apart and dividing people, it could be, I say this all the time, but you could look at music, you can look at sports, you can look at
Hmm.
dogs. If you are a fan of Jack Russell's or the New York Giants or Coachella,
Hmm.
people are going to ask your name, your faith, your skin color. They're going to just share that love of the
Yes.
breed, the music. So I think just Join or Die, I believe to be something along those lines where you can't just be defined by a political party or a race or a
Right.
subdivision or a
Right.
college, right? There's
Right.
more out there. And it's a compliment to everyone because I think we've been focused on being one or the other, and nothing is binary, really. I would
No, and
argue even
even
gender to be controversial. It's a
well,
spectrum in life.
yeah.
And if we can just accept that people are on different parts in the spectrum and meet them there, then we're in a better place already.
It's like what you were saying earlier, Toby. You know, you grew up Catholic. I'm also Catholic. I didn't know that about you. But even if I were to stand with someone of the Jewish faith, for example, there is more that unites us than divides us, without
Absolutely.
question. I mean, there's so many ways that we can just mindset wise look at one another and see the common grounds and see the threads to pull on and see the unitive possibilities of thinking and growing together. And that certainly is part of the American way. And this isolationism, this loneliness that's taking over,
Yep.
especially our younger generations. I have four
Hmm.
children and I worry a lot about that.
Hmm.
And, there's just the join or die really resonates with me because we need each other,
Well,
period.
this organization does screenings anywhere. It's happening a lot on college campuses in particular because that
Hmm.
is an audience prime to receive it. But I could see it also happening in churches. Funny enough, it ties back in an interesting way, but Pope Francis is not in a great way right now. And I've
Right.
had the occasion, I've been to the Vatican 3 times on business and met with the Pope once, all
Wow.
different projects. And he's been a hero to me from the start
Wow.
because he is, I think, tried to be a bridge builder,
Yes, I
try to take
agree.
the oldest bureaucracy in the world and
Hmm.
closeted one at that,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
or opaque at best, and tried to
Hmm.
turn it. And what a thankless task in some
Right.
ways.
Oh my goodness.
Like if
Right.
you saw the movie Conclave, it makes it even more intriguing that this is all
Right.
happening right
Oh
now.
my
But
goodness.
he's
Yeah.
done so much, I think, with his position to try and raise awareness around the climate situation with
Yeah.
Laudacy and
Yeah.
it's just I often say to my husband, it's easier to judge than to do. Right? So when
True.
people want to give me opinions, say, my first response is, well, what are you suggesting we do?
What's the action item?
Right?
What's
If
the
it's
thing
if
instead
it's
of
not
sitting
this,
and
then
moaning?
what?
Hmm.
And he
Right.
countered to me because he's from South Texas, Harlem. Great taught me a great expression, which I think your audience will like, which is like a bird, don't swoop and poop. You can
Nice.
just swoop down and complain, but you can't complain if you don't have
That's
a
good.
suggested solution. Like there's
Yes.
no swoop and
Right.
poop here
It does
because
us no good. It
well,
does
I
us no
think that's
good.
part of the reason we're in this divided time in history, not just in the
Yeah.
US, but globally.
Right.
And digital
Right.
media, swipe left, swipe right, has
Yes.
reinforced this false binary approach. If you
Right.
just think of most things as a spectrum, which I do, then it's a little bit easier to realize that it's not all or nothing, or you're my enemy or my friend. It's
Yeah.
just somewhat
Either
fluid.
or. Yeah, either
So
or
swoop and
thinking
poop.
has never helped any of us, right? And so that's partly where we're stuck, frankly, right? Toby, I want to ask something I wrote down because
Sure.
I don't want to forget about it. But I always am interested to hear from folks once they've learned what they're good at, what that zone of brilliance area is. And for you, it's like that connectivity, networking, skill set, which it certainly is. I'm curious, who in your life early on, I would imagine, maybe did you a solid and introduced you to someone and showed you the power of network in reverse so that
Mhm.
you could sort of see that that was powerful? Like what I'm trying to get at the origin of when you said, you know what? I'm really good at networking and connecting people, and I think this is something like I'm uniquely good at.
Mhm. I don't think there was one person that had that kind of catalytic moment for me. I
Okay.
think it was, we talk often, particularly as a gay man, I'll talk about nature, nurture. Were you born gay? And I think a lot of things in life, you're either a piano protege or you could at least learn to play piano. It's nurture and
Right.
nature. We all have a little bit of
Yeah.
both, anything in us. So that experience my brothers and I had growing up all around the country, I
Hmm.
think made us adaptable. And being adaptable means engaging with the other
Hmm.
constantly because you're
Hmm.
moving. So
Yep.
I think that made me more comfortable with networking in the sense of survival or finding my
Yeah.
way into a new school
Sure.
and then, I joined football team when I was in junior high and you find your different, particularly in your academic years, after school clubs and things.
Hmm.
So that gets you out a little bit more. But I guess that also partly nurture, partly nature. I'm a generalist by nature. So
Hmm.
as I've lived and worked and studied around the world, I'm a master of many things. I'm sorry, what's the term phrase? master of
Oh,
none.
yeah. Master of None is the only thing that's coming to my brain.
Uh, but anyway, so I love that. I love sports, and I like music and culture and travel and hard work and physical labor. And so, jack of all trades, master of none.
That's it. It's like bugging me. Thank you for
And
closing the
yeah,
app.
but that is me. I love being another ages myself, but the Whitman sampler is that candy box had a little bit, all these variety of things. I like
Yes.
that Whitman sampler of life. That's where I
Okay.
find my
That's
joy,
fair. 31
but it's
flavors.
not necessarily for everybody. But that sort of gets back to your point about, how did you realize it? I don't think I realized it until
Hmm.
probably in the past 5 or so years,
Oh,
because
interesting. Okay.
everything I've done along the way has been about not only connecting people purposely, but at greater and greater scales in greater and greater places, like fundraising for marriage equality in New York State. I was on a PAC for 20 years. When I was at American Express, I was out, but this is in the mid 90s, but I wasn't like screaming,
Yeah.
I'm here
Right.
and queer or whatever, but I was on the small committee of employees who very successfully lobbied for domestic partner benefits, which in 1996, that was
Oh, yeah.
gay marriage wasn't an option.
Hmm.
Being out
Right.
was still uncertain, but
Right.
for to be the first financial service company in the United States to offer that benefit, that was
Hmm.
really progressive and
Hmm.
respect. I still love American Express and carry my card with pride and believe that under Harvey Golub, when he was CEO there, the leadership and the values, we called them blue box values because the American Express blue box,
Oh, right.
all
Sure.
that stuff matters. So I've been able, as I've moved along in life, up in
Mhm.
age and in career, I've been able to use those same skills, but perhaps at higher and higher, more impactful levels, whether it's for marriage equality or
Right.
fundraising for a political candidate. Um, so I never stopped to
So
think
it's
that
just
I
been a
was somehow special,
culmination.
but
Yeah.
because I'm not. A lot of my peers, I guess that's part of the thing. Like you move along, you find
Sure.
yourself with more and more like-minded people who want to be both successful in their careers and their communities and
Hmm.
with their families.
Hmm.
So by going along, I look to my left, I look to the right, and my peers are people who are very much, I think of you this way, even though I only know you more recently, or
Hmm.
Samir. You know that there's that biblical saying, like too much that is those who much is given, much is required,
Right.
roughly
Yeah.
speaking.
Yeah.
Um, it's
No,
true.
you're right.
So I only think maybe it was with this book. And when I was at the British consulate running communications, my boss used to say, "Oh, Toby knows everyone." And when they say that, I would demur, but I sort of then like the challenge. So
Yes. You're
I
like,
would say, like,
wait,
well,
do
what do
I
you
know
need?
everyone?
Right.
You know
So
the Pope. So
I have
let's.
a banker friend at Goldman Sachs today who emailed me because he invites me very generously to their institutional client conference, which is about 400 nonprofits and CFOs and working largely in social impact. And he said, "And can you connect me with the CEO of Consumer Reports?" so,
Oh,
so sure. I
we
mean,
can
I'm connected with him as a
find them.
first. So, well, I put the
A
DM.
human LinkedIn. That's what you
Yeah.
are.
Well, so
Toby.
I do have 30,000 contacts there, but I also have other ways. And it's, by the way,
Sure.
it's not transactional because I know that this is probably for an invitation to this institutional symposium, and it would be good for Consumer Reports. And I've also helped the Consumer Reports CEO out before with something else. So my, I guess say my matchmaking is pure. I'm not,
Yeah.
and I'm not getting compensated or anything.
Sure.
It's
No,
on
that's
mission for me, and it's good for
great.
both organizations. And you know what? Only more good can come from that.
Yeah,
Consumer
exactly.
Reports is a storied publication that is advocating for consumers, and the institutional clients of Goldman Sachs are really, they're
Yeah.
nailing it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Toby, I'm thinking about red lights and green lights in a certain
Mhm.
way right now, and I want to pull on this thread for you before we
Sure.
close. When we're looking at the generation coming into the workforce, those who are in kind of maybe those early middle management areas, um, you know, I'm thinking about red lights for a lot of people out in the world around networking and
Mhm.
getting, connections and being brave and bold. There are some red lights of risk that they perceive to be present, right? In terms of what might be stopping them
Mhm.
from feeling empowered to do the things you're talking about throughout this whole podcast. What do you say to those individuals who maybe they're introverted or shy or fearful or don't see the value. What is a simple step that they could take today to kind of move from that red light of feeling uneasy toward that green light of going out and making some of this mission on purpose,
Yeah.
stuff?
Well, the first thing I would say to anyone is if that's what you say and you think, then that will be. So
Mm,
if you think
fair.
I'm not ready or whatever, then I can cheerlead you all the way across the finish line, but it's not what I believe, it's what you have to believe. So I like
Right.
to laugh at them when they say that because who hasn't felt imposter syndrome, right?
Sure, sure.
So once you let them know that that's not an original script, then it diminishes their insecurity about it. Two, as I said, I'm a very big advocate for AI, and this is the perfect kind of thing to workshop in
Oh,
AI.
that's a great idea.
Now they talk in PR in some of the communications functions about creating a synthetic audience. So
Mm.
in the old days, we would do media training for the executive before they went
Yeah,
on.
absolutely. I did a bunch of that.
So right. So you can now create with not great expense, you can create you don't even call it synthetic audience, but what you can do is just set yourself up for a dialogue with AI about
Mhm.
I'm going to be interviewed by go big, say Donald Trump to become, the local rep for whatever. I'm afraid, help. It's going to give
Yeah.
you things right away.
Yes, yes,
And then
yes.
you can say, yeah, but I'm a black girl in,
Yeah.
central Pennsylvania, so put it in the voice of Megan Thee Stallion, and they'll
Yes.
do it.
Yes.
So,
I know. It's so powerful. So
but
cool.
it's
That's a
it,
great
but
idea.
the reason it's powerful is it allows you to. I say to people, if you spend more than 15 seconds thinking about anything, ask yourself, can I run this through AI? So
Right.
all of your fears, doubts, whatever, run through it. The last thing I would say, and particularly for younger or to middle career people, is I'm a big proponent for the organization Toastmasters. I don't know if you've ever done it or heard of it, public
I used to
speaking.
be president of the Toastmasters in college, so I have a little
Truly
bit of experience.
global,
Yeah.
truly, and
Yeah.
I found it's less about public speaking, more about dealing with your demons and your fears. So if
Yes.
you have a lisp or you lost a child or you're an immigrant,
Yep.
whatever it is, what you find out because you tell speeches about what you know,
Yep.
you're helping people to process what they know in front of
Absolutely.
complete strangers with safe coaching, right? You get
Yes.
critical
Yes.
feedback. That's what feedback should be, right? So I
Yes.
would say and it costs very little. You get a
Right.
chapter any zip code in the world, and I think it's a nice longish term, but not too long term commitment because you go at your own pace. You do your 10
Yep.
speeches,
Yep.
building secrets. And it really does, I think, help people exercise their communication skills, but also their analytical skills about their own issues and opportunities, perhaps
Well,
insecurities.
yeah, it's what's up here in between your head, right?
It
And
never
between
gets
your
vetted.
ears. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, just today, an hour ago, I was on a coaching call with a CFO, not Samir, but a different one. And we were talking about experiences this leader had in the military as she was in her early years and how some of the style of militaristic leadership might be holding her back from
Yeah.
being direct and clear enough with her underlings downstream to the point that she should step it up a little bit more. And we talked about a spectrum. It's like, well, there's militaristic kinds of leading, and then there's overly warm and fuzzy. And you can move along that spectrum. And I think we're too far to one side and we need to scoot a little bit over
Yeah.
this way. You need to give yourself permission to do that and be that for the betterment of your people. And so they can see and observe in you the kind of leader they want to be so that you can leave them a legacy of leadership behaviors. Talk about
Completely. But
legacy,
yeah,
right?
but you
Yeah.
can also accord them the same respect that you want of them, which is to say, do I really see, hear, know them, or am I presuming
Right.
things? So you
A lot.
can find you can assume certain things, but you only know so much. But with AI or with your own confidential coaching and network, you can find out like the most odious people in the workplace I've ever had to deal with, where I've gone to as a default is, wow, something really horrible happened to them in the
Yeah.
past. And I'll
Compassion,
never know
believe it
that.
or not,
Once you
right?
know that, even if it's
Yeah.
not true, usually there is something there.
Yes. You're
So I think if you can use AI again to say, this is the CV of my boss, or this is the issue I'm having,
Mm.
suggest what someone like I might do,
Yes.
and then workshop it a bit. But this sounds a bit silly, but think of it as an adventure. Like I'm determined to make this work without compromising my soul, without going overboard. but
Right.
I need to crack this nut, right?
Yes.
We don't need to be friends. I'm not going to try and be friends with everyone, but I'm fascinated by this. And instead of
Mhm.
saying I'm afraid or I'm dismayed, I'm going to make this a learning
Yes.
opportunity for me and hopefully for this person. And
Yes.
these are not original scripts for the most part.
No, yeah. Every person is a puzzle. And I think what's really cool about AI is the ability to ask it for, I do a thing with On Point with our clients. Sentence starters are extremely powerful when crafted correctly. And so I would be, if I was in the person's shoes you were just describing, like, give me 10 sentence starters that I could share with this person who's difficult that set me off on the right foot. And some of
Yes.
those
And then I
answers,
would use the AI the sentence
yes,
starters, the way I would say it today is what's your prompt, right?
yes,
So if you use the AI prompt, you could say to this, you said it's a female military person,
yeah,
right?
mm-hmm,
So you could say, I'm a female, give as little or much information as you want and say,
mm-hmm.
give me 3 to 5 examples in literary and cultural and military history of someone who's overcome this like me.
Ooh, I love it.
And then they'll bring
Yes,
everything
see, I
from
would never think of that.
Shakespeare.
That's
Last
great.
night I just saw a great new Broadway show called Project Mincemeat, which has got the
Mm,
BAFTA Olivier Award for Best New Musical in the UK, and it's about um, the secret. Well, it's about World War II and how they had to counter an invasion. Point is, it's the spies in the UK, and
okay,
there's this personal triumphs and conflicts
sure.
and stuff. None of this stuff is original.
Yeah.
Like The Great Santini is a wonderful book about this kind of personality in the military. There's so many great examples out there. And if your colleague can see that she's not
Mm-hmm.
alone, these are
Yeah.
not original,
Yeah.
and you might even find some fun ways to kind of pepper that in that
It's great.
bridge building relationship with this
Yes.
contrarian
Yes.
colleague.
Yes.
But I think it's about workshopping it safely with AI,
Yep.
talking to someone like you, and really think of it as an adventure because you've only got this one thing. And clearly,
Yeah.
want to thank this woman for her service, but
Oh,
you don't
yeah.
want to grow dismayed and say, I'm
100%.
out because it's
Yeah.
like this is the kind of person we need in the service.
Well, yeah, and it was a positive experience, and it was more like you're saying about being playful and adventurous. Like, I wonder, that's a great prompt, right? Like, I wonder if my experience there has had an impact on my leadership, and I wonder to what degree and what it is, and where could I be pulling more of the good lessons and juice out of that and applying them in my current daily
Yeah,
life, right? And that's where the generative AI can be a great way to get you
big
there
time.
faster and more kind of more little tentacles out from that to give you great, it's just a great imaginative playground,
Cindy, you
100%.
and I should put together a seminar or two on using it, 1 hour seminar on AI and
Yeah. Oh my
finding your
gosh.
purpose because
That would be fun. Let's do
it's
it.
you know great minds working on it together. It's an adventure for us too, but
Yeah.
it only
Oh,
can help us scale our time and effort because we only have so much time and we're two
yeah.
people.
Do you have any worry? This is what my last question before we wrap, but it's always been on my mind. When I first started using AI, I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, I don't know. Like, is this stealing my ability to think creatively? Should I be doing this? Is it okay to do this?" This was, and then I quickly got over that. But, based on what we're talking about here, I guess you could look at it both ways, right? It helps us get imaginative faster and think farther ahead. There are those moments, though, just like we did here, jack of all trades,
Mhm.
master of none. Like, sometimes when I forget something, a name of a person, a city or a state, like, I'm like, no, I'm not going to go look it up. I'm not going to go look it up. I'm going
Mhm.
to let my brain think about it and find the loop and answer it because there is extreme satisfaction in that.
There is.
So, do you have an opinion about that
Yeah,
as far as like, is it hurting us to be not thinking this deeply on our own? Do you have any
Mhm.
thoughts there?
I do. I'll share a story with you. So for me, it's all about intentionality. I try to be intentional in my life. So what one does with AI and their intentions, I think that's where I come back to. Is this, I want to cheat or do I want to
Oh, sure.
collaborate?
Right.
And so I, I threw myself into it when OpenAI came out, ChatGPT 2 years ago, and I just wanted to self learn and then share
Hmm.
with my friends and family because I do believe this is seismic as the printing
Hmm.
press or the nuclear bomb.
Hmm.
And so I began to offer 1 hour seminars on LinkedIn to friends and family
Hmm.
to just get them familiar with the large language models. And what I found is 2 years later, it's another sort of story, but Dorothy Parker, who was with the Round Table, the Algonquin Hotel, did a great riff on that old saying. She, instead of leading a horse to water, she said, "You can lead a horticulture, but you can't make her think." So I can tell people about AI and show them, but at the end of the day, are they going to say, "Oh my God, I get it," which most of them do,
Yep.
or "I'm not ready yet," whatever. So
Yeah.
the story that I was to tell you though is I saw Eric Schmidt, who's co-authored with Henry Kissinger, Genesis, which is a book on AI. Um, I saw him in Riyadh this fall at a investor conference, and then I saw him at the Paley Center here in New York a few weeks later about the book. And
Hmm.
I asked him, I said, I don't want to be Chicken Little, but I feel like this is so important. And I want people to engage with it because if we're not shaping it, then bad forces will, the intentionality.
Sure. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
what he said to me, he didn't give me a pass. He gave me relief. He said, you know what? This is like any great technological innovation. There's a lag effect. It'll eventually catch up. So I'll continue to do my part to introduce
Hmm.
people to AI. I'll
Hmm.
try to
Sure.
address their fears and concerns. Um, I do think in the end it'll probably be 80% neutral to positive and 20% dark, like the web
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yes.
the bigger point is we only have one life, we only have so much time. I believe great brands, great institutions, great individuals need to require of their
Mhm.
stakeholders and offer training in large language models.
I agree.
And if we
Yes.
don't do that, can you really look at yourself in the mirror and say we're growing, educating,
Yes. How
training the
can you,
leaders of tomorrow?
how
So
can you set
no
up for
one's going to be out
success?
of jobs because of AI, but you've heard this over and over again. Those who are conversant in AI are the ones who are going to
Yes.
win. And any
100%.
brand that is not fully integrating AI by the end of the decade is
Hmm.
not going to be in
Hmm.
business because
Hmm.
it's not narrowly focused on just writing
Just
or
be too slow.
legal
Yeah, thinking,
documents.
strategic brainstorming. Also, I mean, we're still finding what else is underneath the tip of that iceberg to begin
And
with. So,
look, in terms of collaboration, this book with Samir got done in record time, but it's all our messages, it's all of our lessons, our metaphors. We built it through AI, but that is a creative collaboration that was only
right,
made possible because of AI.
right,
And that
right.
allows us to share our thoughts and lessons and stuff in a
Yeah,
way that we couldn't do before. So
yeah.
I actually think it will make us more creative, more collaborative. And that's why my last thought is I have great faith in young people and the challenges of today
Hmm.
because I think they are primed to deal with things using AI in other ways and with different priorities than we have. So
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
kind of how it's always been throughout history.
Yes. Yes.
So
Have at it. No, I love it. Oh, Toby, this has been such a great conversation. I have to ask one final question about your favorite place to fly. Since you're a pilot and we didn't dive too deeply into that, but do you have a favorite place to fly or time of day or any experience that you could leave us with as we land this plane?
um,
Ha ha.
I mean, we would fly up to Maine to our friend Sue and David in summers, and that's always beautiful on the coast. But I guess, and I haven't thought through this, but I guess I would say flying at night is really
Really?
quite surprisingly amazing. I tend to be someone who's about light and bright and truth and all this
Yeah.
stuff. But the thing about flying at night is you really do see more in a sense because everything except what is lit is dark.
Yeah.
So it's a lot safer, in my view, visual flight rules. You
Interesting.
see things from all over. And funny enough, that same flight when Samira and I were flying over Wichita, it was at night. I think it was Kansas or Nebraska. I didn't know this, but there are hundreds of thousands of bright red lights flashing at night across the state because they
Hmm.
are huge wind turbines. And there
Yes.
was a movement about, I think, 10 years ago to, try and do alternative power, all of which passed over me. And it was
Right.
actually, I think, a Republican governor who got behind it. But that's a story that's never being told when we talk
Yeah.
about, getting off oil, petroleum type things. But
Right.
I never would have known that, but for the fact that we were flying over the Midwest at night. And it was almost like you were driving through someone's subdivision during Christmas with all the Christmas light
Oh my
shows.
goodness. That's
I
so
mean,
cool.
they were all
So
flat,
cool.
all red, but I mean, hundreds of thousands of red lights across the whole state that I would have never seen but
See,
flying at night.
friends, this is the value of just throwing questions out that you never know what you're gonna get I'm so glad that I asked this question because you just
Same.
gave the most unexpected answer. I never would have thought you were going
I
to
didn't
say
either.
what you said. So I'm really glad
Well,
you
to be
shared
continued. I'd
that.
love to sit more. I'd like to have you on
Yeah,
my show when you're ready,
part two.
and
We'll do
and
part two
um
on yours.
and I
Toby,
think
where
you
can
should do
people?
a lesson or two for your
Oh,
clients around
sure, sure. I'd be
AI
happy to
with
do that. That would be a
bringing
blast.
you an AI.
Oh yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. Toby, where can people find you? I know where, but you can go ahead and share
Sure.
whatever links and
Thanks.
pages you would like.
So my website's Toby Usnik, TOBYUSNIK.com. I'm
Okay.
on LinkedIn, Toby Usnik, and I'm also on Twitter and TikTok and other
Yep.
places. TikTok is for the younger folks. My Funkle
Yep.
Toby profile. I
Uncle
talk to young
Toby.
people and old. The fun uncle you always wanted for life and career advice. I've got
Love it.
1.3
Yeah.
million hits on one more recently. So you
I
Google
love
me,
it.
you'll find me.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much, Toby. I feel like we just hit the iceberg of all the possible topics we could talk about. But in short, I think we really learned a lot about the value of connectivity, personal, person to person human connection, and that, frankly, flying at night might be the best way to go. So thank you
We'll
for
see what
that
Samir
tidbit.
says. Shout out to
Yeah.
Samir for
I'll have to
connecting.
ask him. Exactly. Well,
True
thank you
connector.
for being with me. And all of you watching and listening, thank you for being a part of today's episode. We are really looking forward to bringing you yet another incredible guest coming up next week. In the meantime, get out there, go find yourselves some opportunity to connect with others. Get yourselves from the red light of risk to the green light of go in whatever way that means go for you, and get out there and nail it. Thanks for watching and listening. Bye bye.